Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Welcome guys. Today I want to explain to you the distinction between the East and the West in Christianity. Okay, so there's this thing called the Schism. Between the East and the West, you have the Eastern Orthodox and then you have the Roman Catholic. The Roman Catholic are the Westerns, and then the Easterners are the Greek Orthodox. If you check, just search it up, you see like the schism. The schism, meaning the partition between the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholic, is mainly because of something called filioque. Okay, so the filioque is like, is it the Father that caused the Holy Spirit, or is it the Son that caused the Holy Spirit? That's the main reason they split it. But I want to show you what is their own view or their approach to the Trinity, and how is this relevant even before they split it. Before they split it, there was still this distinction between the Easterners and the Westerns. Okay, that's what I want to show you today. So now, to make it clear, let's start with this. Imagine monotheism. Let's say A here is like one God. Monotheism. Okay, this is monotheism. A. Now, yeah, look at this. A, B, C. That's polytheism. Do you know this, right? Now, this is like oneness. Okay, monotheism. Okay, one. Then polytheism, a plurality. Okay, so most people, they've categorized the East and the West. Like, so the Westerns, like the Roman Catholic, they say they emphasize more, or they start from the oneness and they try to get plurality from it. And then they say the Easterners, they say they start from the plurality and then they try to get one from it. So anyway, you start with one God, and then how can you get more than one individuals there? That's for the West, the Roman Catholic. And then the East, you have three gods. Imagine you have three gods, and then you try to get one God out of that. That is their own approach. So this is how it was simplistically put. Now, so you have the one self. The Western guys, they're mostly one self. Because, you know, a monotheistic God is a self, one self. Whereas, if you have three gods, you have three selves. Okay, so the Western guys, the Roman Catholic, they want to emphasize the oneness of God. Okay, and then they try to get the plurality after. So I've already stated that. Now, the next thing I want to explain now is this. Now, imagine, how do you do this? How can you go about this? Imagine you have one God. Let me just say it right away. The God that everyone knew before Christianity was the Father. Okay, the Father was God. Everyone knew that. No one ever doubted this. Till today, there was never any counsel about if the Father was God or not. It has always been about the other persons. So everyone knows the Father is God. Now, and we also believe in monotheism. That's the whole idea, the Jewish idea. There's only one God. Now, how do you now get plurality out of that? Let me just give you what happened. So, when you have one God, and then is the Father, then the Son, some Christians started saying the Son is supposed to be worshipped. And then they made the connection that, see, only God can be worshipped. If only God can be worshipped and the Son is worshipped, then the Son has to be God too. But it can only be one God. So how do you make room for this? How do you do this? So most of these guys, there's even one scholar that said this is how the Trinity came about. How do you accommodate the Son and even the Holy Spirit in the idea of one God? That's the whole mystery, Abi. Yeah, that's all what it's all about. So now, the first people that reacted to this were the Modalists. The Modalists, they saw this very early on, like late 2nd century in Christian history. They saw this, they're like, wait, if the Son is supposed to be worshipped and is also God, there can only be one God. So they said, you know what, the Son is just appearing. It's another mode of God. So this is what is called modalism. So the Son is a mode and the Holy Spirit is a mode. So imagine this is A, and then you see B, and there can only be one God. So you say B is just appearing like A, and C is also a mode of A in a way. So they had this kind of sequential this and that, which I'll get into later. But the point is, modalism was much more prevalent in the West, and I'll show you why this is actually relevant. Because when you look at the West, the Rome and all those areas surrounding it, you had people like Tertullian, you had people like St. Augustine. But before you even get St. Augustine, you have people like Tertullian. They were dealing with modalists. Okay, they had modalists more in their community than there were even some Roman popes that were modalists. Go and check the history. Okay, so the point is that modalism was much more prevalent in the West. So the Trinitarians, them, they are denying this monotheism. So you have people like Tertullian writing against this. But what I want you to show is that their move away from this modalism, is it really sufficient or not? So let's just stop there for the Westerners. Now, the Easterners, on the other hand, them, they wanted to emphasize on the distinctness of the persons and their co-equality, to show that each one of them has full divinity. Okay, each one of them is fully God. Okay, now them, they will now try to, because now you're going to have 3 gods. So how do you get one out of that? So they use many other methods, but I hope you have seen this. So now let's now go into let me just name some honorable mention. The Easterns, from the East, you have someone like Gregory of Nyssa, and from the West, you have someone like St. Augustine. Okay, now for modalism, I already told you, modalism is more like, imagine you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and there can only be one God. So the only way they can maintain monotheism is to say that the Son is a mode of the Father, and the Holy Spirit is a mode of the Father. So the Father is the real thing there. The Son and the Holy Spirit are just modes of, like imagine I wear a mask, something like that. They've given this kind of analogy. And most of the time it's sequential. So it has not always been the case. There was the Father, and then when the Father wanted to do something in creation, then the Father took on the form of the Son, and then in the end, he came and took on the form of the Holy Spirit. That's how they can maintain monotheism, and that's what they did. So you had imagine at T1, eternally, you have the Father. Then at T2, the Son is there. And then at T3, the Holy Spirit is there. So it's kind of sequential. By the way, some modalists, they will say they are not sequential modalists, but the point is that they still affirm that there are different modes of the same entity. There's only one thing there. Okay? There's only one numerical identity, A, appearing in 3 different modes. That's what they will say. So now, what the Western guys now have done is that, how do they now get out of this? So them, they say, these modes, now imagine these modes eternally. Imagine these modes that are eternal instead of being sequential. Imagine them as eternal. So the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit are the different aspects of the one God, but this is eternal. It didn't start in time. It has always been the case. That's what them they have. So I will explain to you what it means. Let me just read it to you, St. Augustine. What St. Augustine said. Some of the analogies he gave to show you why this is what they are thinking about. Because St. Augustine is from the West, okay? So he gave an analogy of how do you understand the Trinity. He said, imagine the mind, okay? Then its knowledge and its love. You'll be like, what are you talking about, bro? Let me give you another analogy. He said the lover, the loved object, and the lover's love for the object. These guys, when they're talking, when you say, okay, I told you, me and someone else, and the love between us, how can the love between us be another person? You see, this is the problem of the West. They had all this logos Christology and stuff like this, which means that the Son, when I say the Son, it's like misleading, really. It's the logos meaning the word. So the Son is the word of the Father. So the word of the Father, you be like, how can someone's word be another person? Like my word, is my word someone another person from me? My soul, is it another person from me? My spirit, is it another person from me? Yes, according to these guys, they are persons. So you have the Father, then the Father's word is the Son, and the Father's Spirit is the Holy Spirit. Literally, I'm not joking. That's what they think. So in a way, it's still, imagine me, my soul, and my spirit. Let's say I have these 3 stuff. I'm the subject, then my soul and my spirit. They are somehow aspects of me, the same aspect of one subject. So you have oneness there, but you have some aspects. Like my soul is not another person, but they've made them into persons. Fine. So that is why the Western guys, with this ideology, they will always be charged with modalism. Whenever they try to explain their views, it will always be modalistic in a way. When you break it down to be like some aspects, some modes of one being, and some of them have clearly stated it now because they are trying to avoid this other conclusion, which I'll get to later. So the point is, have you gotten it? They try to be against modalism, but their idea is not very far off from modalism as well. So that is one. Now, so that's why I said there's one self. There's one self, just like I'm one self, but I have my soul and I have my spirit, for example. But I'm still one self, right? Now imagine the three selves, the Eastern guys, their own view about God is like the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. They are persons and they are distinct from each other. Okay, while they are distinct from each other, they are fully God. So each one of them is God. Okay, so now imagine if you have the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and each one of them is God. You should have polytheism, no doubt about that. And they will tell you, yes, you have polytheism if you don't fulfill the condition. So they have some condition that you must meet in order to have monotheism. So, like I told you, they start from plurality and try to get unity. Okay, so with them, they have emphasis on some unifying factor. And if you have been watching my other videos, I've shown you how they try to unify them. So one of the ways they try to unify them is using perichoresis. Okay, so they will talk about perichoresis. They will talk about causal dependence, that the Father is the cause of the Son and the Holy Spirit, and then they are not temporal, they are eternal, and many other things like this. But the main one, I think, is the two. There are two main ones: homoousios and perichoresis. Okay, so they use, but I think perichoresis is the most important one, because if you read people like Origin and many other things. So the point is that now, how can you get from three gods? Can you unify three gods into one? That's their own task. So how they went about it, they use perichoresis. This perichoresis, if you know what it means, if you watch my other video, I've explained it. So imagine three gods that necessarily love each other, necessarily work together. You cannot separate their work. They are always doing the same thing. They can never differ in their work. They are achieving the same goal. So this perichoresis is a kind of functional oneness. Okay, functional oneness, like a company in a way. So these guys, they are much more. You see, like Christians are like social Trinitarians, like a social community trying to achieve one particular goal. That is what perichoresis is. Anyone saying otherwise, they are just appealing to mystery. They don't know what they are talking about. Origin has explained it, giving an analogy of the wife and the husband. Imagine the wife and the husband, they are married. The husband and wife, they are married, so they are one. He said they are one flesh, just like he says in the Bible, but not literally one flesh. It's a oneness of function, right? So this is the kind of thing they are saying. That's perichoresis. That's how we unify them. They use love also. That if they don't, you might be hearing some arguments like, if there's no love, if God doesn't have another person to love, then where is love? And all of that. That's their own defense. They are always charged with Tritheism. Remember, the Western guys, they will always be charged with modalism because their view is closer to that. The Eastern guys, if you bring modalism close to them, they will kick it out. That's why in history, people like Marcellus of Ankara and all these modalist people, they don't, Eusebius of Caesarea and many others, they were supporting the Arians against, in the Council of Nicaea. They were supporting them in a way, So the point is, I'm showing you is that they emphasize on the triness, and they believe they can use perichoresis and many other things to show the oneness of God, which I think is functional oneness. Why? And if you look deeply into it, you get polytheism. Watch my other streams, my other videos. The Western guys, on the other hand, if you look deeply into their own view, it will be modalistic. At the end of the day, either is one self or three selves. If you have three selves, you have polytheism. If you have one self, you can have monotheism, but the persons will not be God individually. They will be like modes of God. And I think that's all we should say. So, by the way, Gregory of Nyssa is from the East, right? Someone asked him about this. He said, three men. Just like, imagine you have three men. He said, these three men, the only reason why they are not one, like in the case of the Trinity, is because their work, you can differentiate between their work. And they don't love themselves necessarily and all of that. If they had done that, maybe they will probably be one too. Do you see why? They talk about universal essence, like divinity. So each one of them. So, like, look at this. The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Each one of them is God. Okay? Each one of them have full divinity. Then you have three gods. But wow, you have something. G prime. This G prime is how you call them one. They're not really one. You just call them one. And they think it's necessary to call them like this. If you don't emphasize, if you don't affirm the social community of the Trinity, they believe you are in much more trouble, because now, how can they love each other? Where is love before creation? And all of that. So I hope you can get all of this. I think there's too many things I can just put into this video as well. I hope you understand the difference between the East and the West now. The Eastern guys, plurality. The Western guys are oneness. So one self, three selves. So that's all. So see you guys later. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.